Good morning, everyone. I am just going to bring my guests up onto the stage. I won't be a moment. We're just waiting for Night to join us as well. Hi, Neeta. How are you?
I'm well, Stacey. How are you?
Good, thank you. Just waiting for Night to come onto the call, but I'll start off anyway. Welcome to everyone who's joining us today. We have a great chat all about how to successfully plan a subdivision development. My name's Stacey and I'm the Sales and Marketing Coordinator here at Relap. And joining me on the chat at the moment is Neeta Deo from Thomas Consultants. Now I'll get her to talk through a bit about her and Thomas Consultants shortly. I'm just going to check if Night's on the call. Oh yeah, I'll just bring up Night. Sorry, Neeta, do you mind muting your mic for now until you, there's a bit of feedback coming through? Cool, we've got Night on the call now. His picture should be showing up in a second. Night is the CEO and co-founder of Relap, if anyone doesn't know. Now, if you've got any questions for us throughout the webinar, just pop them in the chat on the sidebar. We've also got Lou from the Relab team in the chat, and if you've got any questions or issues, she will try to help you out. Now, Night's showing. Yes. Okay, cool. Oh, we can't hear you, Night. No. Okay, I'll keep talking while Night's figuring out his sound. He's going to rejoin. That's all right. Okay, anyway, now we thought today's chat would be a perfect one, as in the last year we're seeing quite a large increase in the amount of resource consents being issued. And according to a recent Stuff article, this increase is predominantly in multi-unit homes such as townhouses, units and apartments, and these housing types accounted for around 45% of all consented homes last year. So if you are a developer or even a real estate agent and you're looking at multiple development sites a day, efficient and accurate due diligence is super important, and so you can make the right decisions in a timely manner. I'll just check if Night's back on this call. Yes, he is. Sorry for the issues. Cool, it's working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, fabulous.
Awesome. Hey, morning everyone, and sorry for that little glitch.
No problem at all. Cool, so I just took people through a bit of a brief of why we're doing the webinar, the increases in resource consents, etc. And that's a great place to start, where Relap can take a bit of the pressure off when you're doing your due diligence, as we allow you to access all the information you need in one place. So Night and I will quickly chat about that now before we talk to Neeta. Yeah, Night, where are you today? You're having technical issues. Wherever you are.
Oh yes, sorry about that, team. This is our first webinar in 2022, and super great to be here to connect with everyone again. So the reason I was having technical difficulty was I think in previous webinars some of our guests complained that they couldn't hear me, so I decided to try something else. But I didn't really have a proper test run / due diligence before this webinar. So that just shows the importance of doing due diligence before you commit on anything, let alone a development site, right? So, hey, just a quick intro or self-introduction for some of our audience who are new to this webinar or to Relap, perhaps. So we are a property technology startup. Our mission is to bring 360-degree unbiased information, data, and insight, and connect them with property professionals such as real estate agents, developers, or anybody who has an interest, who wants to get involved from an early stage. So, Relap brings in the different mapping, underground services, the zonings, and other information such as title, school zones, basically all the basic entry-level information in one portal. So you don't have to jump through multiple hoops. We are doing the early stage due diligence. So we're a company of 11 people now. We're based here in the Ice House. So Ice House is like a startup incubator, and it's a really nice community. I can show you around. So I'm just gonna take my laptop, and so this is the Ice House environment. Lots of cool startups are based here in this co-working space. So we feel very privileged to be part of the Ice House community. And our team are working very hard to bring you the next new feature, the next new product, and improve our existing product experience for our customers. So yeah, we're super happy to be here. Any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah. So sorry, my cats are making some noise in the background. They're just distracting me. I'm clearly not in the Ice House. I'm at home with my cats. But anyway, just to go quickly over some Relap features that would be perfect for property developers or even real estate agents if you've got property developer clients that you're talking to. I really like to start with our maps because you can layer different views on top of each other. So for example, you can view high resolution satellite imagery, and you can overlay flooding zones or services, so you can see where wastewater, stormwater is, which is super helpful to get a full picture of the site without even having to go onto the site. Knight, do you want to take us through any other features before we pass over to Neeta?
Yes. So if you think of, there's so many different tools and systems out there. You can go on Open Council GIS to look up the underground services, or you can go on some of the listings website to get the latest market trends and pricing, or you can go on Google Map and get a 360 view, satellite map, etc. Where Relap is really, really unique and where we are trying to add value to our customers is we bring everything together in a very concise manner. So you don't have to, especially, when you're on the go, when you try to access the information on mobile, we're fully mobile optimized. You can access underground services, flooding, all the different zoning information. We're also one of the first, maybe only website that shows you the recently approved resource consent and building consent on the map. So if you're doing due diligence on a street or a particular property, you just want to know what's going on around here. What are other people building, or what's going to come online over the next 12 to 24 months? We show that to you on the map, which is quite unique and quite helpful. Titles, right? As part of your early due diligence process, you want to know, are there anything on the title that might provide roadblocks for you? So all of that information can be accessed via Relap. So that's the basic layer info. And then on top of that, we have developed a few really, really handy tools, again, for early due diligence. For example, we have a tool, very popular tool called Subdivision Feasibility Calculator. That's mostly suitable for sort of small to medium-sized residential projects that allows a property professional to very quickly work out the feasibility, return on cost, and return on investment based on, really high-level due diligence. What else do we have? Late last year, we launched a tool called Relap Planning Report, or RPR. So on Relap, just enter address. We have consolidated all the unitary plan related information and consolidated it in a 20 to 30 page report with different mapping and other details. For example, activities, what are the zoning standards, and any overlays, designations, overlays, and controls that might have. So that's probably where our information would stop in terms of the scope. I think if you're looking at carrying out any project further, you should consult a professional such as Thomas Consultants. So I think that's probably a nice segue that I can hand over to Neeta.
Tell us a bit about Thomas Consultants and the services you provide. And yeah.
Night, and thanks you, Stacey. I just wanted to double check, is there any feedback now that I've unmuted myself? Perfect. I was just going to say, Night, I mean, myself being a planner, I've actually been on Relap, and I actually go to it quite often because it's just such a nice platform, such a user-friendly platform to go to when you're trying to find information, and it's all consolidated, like you said, in one place, which I really appreciate. I mean, I'm very familiar with GIS systems. I'm familiar with all these other sort of platforms that are available to us, to piece together information, and I use it all the time. But to be able to go to a platform where everything is there, and it's easy to click through to the information, I think it's incredibly useful. But anyway, I'm not here to sell Relab. I'm here to sell Thomas Consultants. So I'll move on. I'll tell you what we do. So Thomas Consultants. We are a multidisciplinary professional services consultancy. We offer wraparound services geared towards land development. So things like civil engineering, planning, surveying. So these are your core consultants that you would need if you're working on a subdivision project. Now, depending on your site and depending on your proposed development, you may also require these additional specialists, and we offer those such as ecologists or landscape architects or soil contamination specialists. We also offer project management. We will partner with geotechnical engineers as well, or traffic engineers if the development warrants it. So I guess in a nutshell, we're kind of like a one-stop shop, which I think is incredibly helpful to developers, where we sort of bring all the services that you need under one roof. Friendly people like myself manage your subdivision process, get you your subdivision, secure your subdivision approvals, and then subsequent to that, our specialists will work alongside your contractors to deliver on your titles. We do a lot more than that, but since we're talking about subdivisions, those are the services that we offer. So that's just a little bit about us in a nutshell. We've been around for a long time now. I think we celebrated 20 years a few years back. So sorry, I can't keep track, and I'm not too sure if 2020 and 2021 are valid years. So yeah, 20 years and plus for us.
Right into the nitty-gritty questions for you.
Yes.
What are the main complications you see with sites which developers are hoping to subdivide?
Wow, Stacey, that's a good question. And look, I have to admit, I don't see any straightforward sites anymore. You don't find them very often. They definitely come with complications. The main one that we see, guys, is servicing. I think that's probably key. When I say servicing, we're talking about stormwater, wastewater, water. Now, if you've got services on your neighboring property that you need to connect to, that brings about a lot of uncertainty and could add to costs, because you do need to get their approval to be able to connect to those systems. So unless you get along with your neighbors, you've got to account for that in your project timeline. The other thing that I've seen is that if you've got obviously services that are located at a distance, you've got to think about bringing those services closer to your development site. So again, you need to adds to your costs. And even if you've got services within your property. You need to think about things like the capacity or its condition. So if it's under capacity or the pipes are not that great and it hasn't met standard, then I guess that also adds to cost. So you've got to think for this and allow for that when you're doing your numbers. The other sort of complication that's always there are all the sort of restrictions that planning regulations put on the site. Think about things like natural hazards, so flooding, overland flow paths, streams. They all limit the extent of development that you can do on your property. Other things like overlays, special character, historical items on your site, significant vegetation that are required to be retained. Airport noise controls. These are all, there's quite a few, and I'm not going to get into them, but there are quite a few, and you do need to account for this when you're looking at developing a site. So I guess the solution around avoiding some of these complications, Stacey, is to really engage a good planner and a civil engineer really early on in the process. Once you've done your sort of upfront sort of quick numbers using a place like Relap, talk to a consultant, figure out what this data means for you. Your civil engineer or your planner will be able to identify any roadblocks or showstoppers quite early in the process. And that'll sort of avoid you sort of spending too much time and money into a particular site that really isn't going to get you anywhere. So yeah, those would be the sort of the key ones that I can kind of think of at this stage to be aware of. Yeah.
Perfect, thanks for that. And as we are seeing a lot of changes, particularly like, for example, the medium density proposed rules, and there's just a lot of changes happening in the property industry in general. What aspects of a development with these changes, what aspects of a development are typically overlooked?
That's a good question, Stacey. If you've got a place like Relab, I think, which I think is really good to have, because the information that you get on this sort of platform is current, and you can rely on it in terms of what the most recent sort of rules might be in terms of standards and all that sort of stuff. But I think what I do see, the things that can get overlooked when things are changing in the background, is that I think people need to allow for time. When you're looking at a project, obtaining consents take time. Getting your approvals organized take time. Construction takes time, and when you throw things like lockdowns in the mix, my goodness, you do need to allow for a lot of time. So, a 4-bedroom dwelling might be something that the market demands now, but you've got to future-proof your development, because you're not going to be delivering those products until 2 years later, or 3, or whatever that might be. So, is the market, or is your product right for the market? When it's on the ground. So I think that's probably one of the key sort of things that get overlooked. The other stuff is just what I've talked about maybe earlier, is infrastructure. Look out for infrastructure. Look out for where the connections are. Do you need to talk to neighbours to get approvals? Because if you do need to do that, then that's just going to add to time and things like that. What else? Assets on road burns is another thing that sort of happens all the time. Look out for things like streetlight poles or a bus stop that you might need to relocate, because those things, you need to get approvals from different organizations, and to physically relocate a bus stop, that adds to cost. So these are some of the things I think you should look out for.
Hey, Neeta, I just spotted a question. I think it's quite a good timing to bring it up. So Dia has asked, in council/AT allowed to cut trees at the roadside to get new driveways? How easy it is, please?
Yes, never anything quite easy, Dia, with council, unfortunately. There is a process, though. anything on the street or the council berm is not yours, it's owned by council. So even retaining walls or street trees, transformers, any assets that are on the road berm is owned by council. So you need to get their approval. Most definitely, it's not easy to cut trees down, especially if they're a significant specimen. If they're good-looking trees, council will want to retain them because obviously we want to have good-looking streets, nice streets. You can apply to have it removed sometimes, and I have obviously this is something that we do is we look at doing replacement planting for trees that you're looking to remove. But again, I just want to say that if it's a good established tree, you may have difficulty getting an approval from council to remove it. So think about having a plan B for your driveways. Is there a way? Is there another position that you could relocate your driveway to?
Yeah, that kind of flows nicely into my next question. What are the main property characteristics you need to look for when you're looking to subdivide?
Main property characteristics. I've talked about this. So services, look out for services. I think if you've got services in close proximity, then you're in a good position to develop the site. Zoning, I think we might have briefly touched on it before. It should be the right zoning. So things like, and I'll use Auckland as an example because I'm quite familiar with the plan. So things like mixed housing, urban, suburban, terraced housing, and apartment zones. Those are the ones that you want to get into if you want to develop and intensify. And I think with the changes to rules coming about this year, you might be able to dip into single house zones as well for intensification. Hazards, look out for those things. Overland fill paths and flood do impact on how the site gets developed. You need to ensure that you meet minimum flood levels, and that sort of affects how high you can build your development. What else? Titles. Look for restrictions on titles. Things like consent notices, covenants. If you've got a good planner that's working with you, they should be able to identify any roadblocks that may stem from titles. If you're a developer and you're looking to sort of demolish any existing dwellings on site, you could have a blank sort of slate to undertake a development. Think about the era of the existing building and when it was built. Does it contain asbestos material? Because in demolishing those, that building, you need to ensure that you manage asbestos. These things, the asbestos-containing material, need to be disposed of at a licensed sort of landfill. So those things add to cost, and you want to make sure these things are managed carefully. Again, a company like Thomas do offer these sort of services and sort of manage that process for you. Another tip, Stacey, contamination. If you've bought a property that might have been historically used for a vineyard or strawberry farm, and there's going to be contamination on site, and for you to develop this particular site for residential purposes, you will need to remediate it, and so you need to take that contaminated soil and dispose of it at a landfill. Those things add to costs. So these are some of the stuff that I can think of at the top of my head. Illegal fill works is another common one that we see. Back in the day, people used to just sort of fill gullies and that sort of stuff, and that was fine then. But if you're going to develop sites that have had fill, your geotechnical engineers will be able to pick up on these elements, and these things impact on how your foundations are designed, and also the fill could be contaminated. So again, those things to contend with.
There's so much to unpack. Thank you very much, Neeta. We were getting some questions from Tom and James, but before we get on the questions, can I just elaborate on some of your comments before? One is around, you touched on overland flap flow. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Now it's okay.
Now we can, yeah.
Apologies. And is it correct that the Auckland Council is refreshing or renewing the hydrology maps in terms of the flooding zones and overland flood paths?
They
As
do
far as
that
you,
constantly.
okay, yep.
Yeah, they do that constantly, Night. As new information becomes available, they do try and update their catchment sort of data and hydrological data. How often they do that and what triggers it, I'm not too certain. I would need to talk to the engineers to sort of get a feel for that, but it does get updated.
Cool.
You know, as things get built, it all affects how water moves on land. So this sort of stuff gets updated constantly.
Right. In other words, don't rely on outdated data when you're looking at
No.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. My second question is around, you touch on contamination. Is like before our user commit on a development site, is there any way that they can check for any contamination history? Is there anything that they can look for in terms of telltale signs? Or is the only way sending a engineer on field and take samples to determine whether there's contamination?
Yeah. There is actually. So, I'm not too sure if this feature is on Relap yet, but on sort of the Auckland Council GIS that I look at quite often, you can pick up historical images that date back to 1940, 1959, 1980, and so on and so forth. And this is publicly accessible. So,
Right.
yeah, if you've got a vineyard that gets picked up in 1940, that is a contaminated site that you would need to do some investigations on. Look, just because you've got a vineyard doesn't necessarily mean that you need to remediate the entire site. What happens is that if you've got a site that shows some horticultural use, what that means is that you get a specialist, so we've got like a contamination specialist that would put together a site investigation report, sort of determining what the concentrations of contamination is likely to be. And if it's over a certain concentration, meaning it's bad for health, then that's something that needs to be remediated. If it's not, then there might be other ways that you could just manage that. You could disperse, put more topsoil on it, or yeah, there's different methodologies there. But yeah.
So James has asked a question, how easily can you check the services capacity for different sites? Is it usually able to be done by you as a desktop exercise?
Sorry, James, not desktop, unfortunately. We do it, but our engineers get contractors involved to go and check capacity on site.
I don't know, maybe James, you can clarify your question a bit further. Are you meaning wastewater, stormwater, or both? And I guess another way to look at James' question, I'm assuming here, is you have a subject site, you haven't done anything with it. Can you go on, both Relap or Auckland Council and look at the diameter of stormwater, say, for example, and try and ascertain whether on paper it is doable?
Sorry, you cut out there a little bit towards the end, Night? Or...
Sorry, yeah. What I was saying is it possible during the really, really early stage of a site due diligence, just look at the information of underground services, say, for example, it's a 150 PVC for wastewater, or it's a 300 concrete for stormwater. Is it possible to use that information as part of desktop research to go yeah or nay very early on?
Absolutely, yeah. I think if you've got a good engineer on your team, they should be able to pick up those pipe sizes and sort of have an indication as to whether there's going to be any capacity issues. What our engineers also do is they talk to council. You need to have a conversation to see if there's any wider network capacity issues as well that need to be taken account. So it's a piece of it, but there's more things to be done. I think a desktop is definitely the way to start, and the information that you have available either on public platforms or yourself, like Relab, that is a good starting point. And your engineer should be able to pick that up and sort of give you some guidance whether there's going to be any capacity issues.
Cool. I agree. Yes. It all depends on how seriously you're looking at committing to a project, right? If you look at spending multi-million dollar to commit on a multi-year project, definitely get a professional involved. Once you've decided, yep, I'm going to go and start negotiation, get the consultants, such as Thomas Consultants, involved, because the other professionals, we can talk to the council. One of the caveat on the desktop research is council might have wider network considerations that you can't really tell from the desktop, and B, sometimes those underground services are not updated. So we get our data, which is lively synced up with council, but it depends on how often does council update their underground services. So Calvin has asked a question: how long does it take for the council and Relap to update the new underground services on their systems? So our system is in sync with the council, is 100% up to date. But how often council updates that, it depends, I guess. There is new infrastructure been building every day, and there will be a lag between when the physical underground services infrastructure is in and when council will update it in their systems. Am I correct in saying that, Neeta? Yeah.
I have a bit of a different question from a different perspective. If you were providing advice to a real estate agent who's got a developer client, what are some crucial advice points that they should be passing on to their client as an agent?
I guess, Stacey, it really depends on the client and what they're intending to do with the site. If it's a developer wanting to develop, and that's what a lot of people are wanting to do these days, is to intensify. And a lot of real estate agents are really clued up these days. They're really aware of what the rules and regulations are, and that's wonderful to see, really. But I think what they should be aware of is really the serviceability of the site, the zoning. Is that right for development? I think having a good understanding of what the title is indicating is helpful as well. So if there are restrictions on the title, it's probably a good idea to advise the potential purchaser of what that might mean for if they want to develop it. The other thing is we see a lot of cross-lease sites, being updated, or cross-lease sites moving to freehold subdivision. One of the key things there that I've come across is having defective titles. So if you're in a cross-lease sort of arrangement and your neighbour's gone and done an addition to the site and you haven't updated the flats plan, that renders your title defective. So you do need to update it. And so that impacts on your subdivision as well if you're wanting to subdivide a cross-lease site. So being aware as a real estate agent of what's been legally established on site is really, really important. And so that passing that information on to your purchasers is helpful. The other thing you touched on, Mike, as well, I thought was quite good, is having knowledge of what's been approved around the immediate vicinity is incredibly helpful, because if you're looking to develop a site, knowing that your neighbouring property has got a resource consent or building consent approved, you know that services are being brought closer to you, whether it be on the road or neighbouring site. So having that knowledge, I think, will set you apart from other real estate agents, knowing that there's something approved here, and look, if you buy this, you can develop it because, hey, look, you can talk to your neighbours, or the services will be out on your doorstep. Yeah, so I think those are some of the things that I can sort of think of at the moment.
Final question for you today is, what tips do you have for developers looking to subdivide? I guess it's a bit of a summary of what we've talked about.
What sort of tips? Gosh, I think, without trying to sell Thomas Consultants, I'll try not to do that. But just engage engage a good planner and civil engineer as soon as possible. If you're serious about developing a site, get the professionals. Once you've got the data from a place like Relap, get your professionals to interpret what that means for you. They will be able to identify sort of roadblocks and showstoppers early on, and you can make a decision whether this is a go or no-go type of project. Gosh, subdivision has got a lot of moving parts. There's multiple people that need to be involved, all sort of singing the same song. So I think having a one-stop shop can be incredibly beneficial to a developer in terms of information sharing, in terms of collaboration, in terms of coordination, and ensuring that information is not missed between specialists and that everything is consistent. I think that is very, very important. And for a developer, having one point of contact into a consultancy or one point of contact and not having to deal with multiple specialists is very helpful as well. It will save you time, it will save you a lot of money, and it will avoid sort of mistakes being made as well. So yeah, that would be one tip. The other thing we talked about before was future-proofing your development. So allow for time. Consents take time, unfortunately, these days. It is what it is, and we've got to live with it. So allow for that in your project timeline. Future plan your development. That's probably it. I think that summarizes some of the stuff we've spoken about.
Yeah, I like to just add on what Neeta you just mentioned there. I think we have a lot of our clients who are developers and real estate agents, etc. So I would think, if you commit on development projects like driving a car from A to B, let's say that. Sorry. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. I'll try and speak a bit slower, and you let me know if I'm cutting out again. I think committing into a multi-million-dollar development, it's like driving from A to B, right? If you want to drive to Wellington from Auckland, you're going to make sure you have enough fuel. You have to make sure all your services done. You have to make sure that you have enough toilet breaks along the way, where you're going to stay overnight, how's the weather system looking, and any other hazard that might come along the way. So that goes back to, Neeta, your point around plan ahead. I remember talking to one really established residential developer, and they have like a planning template that they run through before they commit on any project, and it's part of the due diligence. And also, they have a stakeholder management plan as well, because as you said, right, so many success of your project relies on council, your consultants, engineers, subcontractors. You need to map them out and highlight any risks, any roadblocks early on, so that you take all of that into account and mitigate it early on. So again, I agree with you, Neeta, going to almost like a one-stop shop, or having different consultants all talking to each other is super, super important. That will save your time, in turn will save your money, and will make sure that your project can be as successful as you can.
Questions. Oh, I'll check if there's questions. Oh, wait.
I thought I just might quickly mention as well, guys, what we'll do, Stacey, is we've prepared like a really sort of a brief overview, a bit of like a guideline into subdivision. So, I'm not too sure, like I imagine the audience here, some people are seasoned developers, some people are not, or some people are considering developing or subdivision. So we've prepared like a guideline, a subdivisions guideline, which I think might be helpful in terms of information if someone's wanting to take a look at and sort of educate themselves. We'll send through the link through to you, Stacey.
It's just been put in the chat there. So
cool.
Okay. We can make sure we include that link when we send out our emails to everybody who's signed up to this. Hey, I think before we go, can I just ask you to comment on one thing, Neeta? So this is from a question from Calvin. How are the new density standards affecting single house zone? Can you give us some commentary around that, please?
I could. Look, the plan changes are yet to come through, but I suspect because single house zone is a urban residential zone, that they will also be subject to the medium density residential standards, just like the mixed housing, suburban, urban, and TAV zones will be. So look, I'm not writing the rules, but my suspicion is that they too will come into that mix, which is why I think the landscape will change quite a bit for those in the single house zone. I could be proven wrong, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, time will tell. Cool. Since there's no more questions, I'll wrap the session up here. Anyone watching will get a recording sent straight to their inbox this afternoon, just in case you missed anything, want to take notes or anything like that. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. And huge thank you to Neeta for coming on today. There's some really great information.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.